بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We want to discuss now the lessons which we learned in the Battle of Uhud. And like I mentioned before, the lessons we're going to mention, they are not in any particular order. So they're not going to follow the stream or the flow of the story we mentioned. Okay? Even though that would have been the better option, but that's almost impossible to do. Now, as usual, I'll say next and you will do the numbering. Okay? So, the first lesson we learn from the Battle of Uhud is we see the permissibility, and again, this is not intended in any particular order. I know some of you like the conspiracy theories, so you're about to call me out for the first lesson I have, which the Shaykh wrote. It's not me. He says the first one is the permissibility of women to go out in the battlefield. Why are you laughing? You'll say I'm a feminist, right? Women's rights, they should go fight also. But this shows that it's allowed for the women to go out in the battlefield. Not necessarily to fight, because we know after later on, the Prophet ﷺ, he told the women, there's no jihad on you, there's no fighting for you. When they asked him to go out and fight, the Prophet ﷺ said, no, there's no fighting for you, and your jihad is hajj. For the woman, for her to do hajj, that's her jihad, because it's difficult enough. That's an authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. But we see that it's allowed for the women to go out to help in taking care of the wounded, like to be like nurses, to give them water, and that was they used to do. Right? Even though in this battle, some of them were forced to fight. The next benefit we get from the story of the Battle of Uhud is the permissibility for a Muslim to go and attack a group of the disbelievers. Now, I want you to listen to me carefully. This is not suicide. Suicide, intihar, is when you know you're going to die. So you say, instead of saying, I'm going to die alone, what they call suicide bombing today. That's not allowed. When you go into the enemies and he explodes himself and to kill others, that's not allowed. Because you know 100% you're killing yourself. What the Sahaba used to do, which is called al-inghimas, is he goes into the lines of the enemy and he fights. Maybe he'll come out, maybe or not. Okay? That is allowed Islamically. Next benefit we get, and this we see in the part of Anas ibn Nadr radiallahu anhu. We see the importance of fulfilling the promise. Again, with Anas ibn Nadr, the importance al-wafa'u bil-ahd, to fulfill the promise, even if it's difficult. What is the promise he gave? Anas ibn Nadr, he said what? I missed the battle of Badr, but if Allah makes me alive to see another battle, I will show Allah what I will do. That is the promise he took on himself. So you have to fulfill that promise. Next one, we learn that it's allowed for a Muslim to ask Allah for shahada. This is completely allowed. In fact, it's recommended. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever asks Allah ash-shahada bis-sidq, truthfully, Allah will make you reach the status of the shaheed even if you die in your bed at home. And we'll also see this inshallah maybe when we discuss Umar ibn Khattab. Umar radiallahu anhu, he always used to ask Allah, Allahumma rzuqni shahada fi sabilik fi madinati rasulik. Oh Allah, make me die as a shaheed in the city of your Prophet, Medina. And the companions in the Tabi'un, they used to say, how? How is that going to happen? You are the leader of the believers. There's no non-Muslims here. How are you going to be killed as a shaheed in Medina? And he used to make that dua always. And look how, in the end, he was killed as a shaheed by the fire worshipper Abu al-Majusi. So the one who asks Allah for shahada sincerely, Allah gives it to him, even if he dies on his own bed. The next benefit we learn is that it is allowed to bury 2 or 3 people or more in one grave. If there are many who are dead, it is allowed to bury 2, 3, 4 of them in one grave. Also, we learn from the Battle of Uhud the hukm, the ruling on the Salatul Janaza for the Shuhada, which you mentioned yesterday. These again are fiqh issues which some of the scholars they differed on, because there are a hadith which says the Prophet ﷺ prayed on Hamza, and there are hadith which says he did not pray janazah on anyone. So there's 2 groups, 2 opinions, and whatever opinion you take, Allahu A'lam, that is okay. Next we learn that this is not differing though, that the shaheed is not washed. There's no ghusl. The body of the shaheed is not washed and prepared for burial. He is buried the way he died. He is buried the way he died. Can you shroud him though? The coffin, like how we shroud everybody else. Me and you, if you die, people are going to wash your body and then cover you in the pieces of cloth. It's called the shroud, and then bury you. The shaheed, we said, is not washed. That is complete. That's agreeable 100%. Okay, what about the coffin? Should we cover them in cloth, or should we bury them in those same cloths? It is allowed to do the coffin. We saw that in the story of Hamza radiallahu anhu, when his sister Sophia bint Abdul Muttalib, she brought the coffin. So they covered him, even though they did not take his clothes which he had. So you leave the clothes they had and you put the coffin on top. Okay? And also we learn that, as in the story of Hamza and Mus'ab, if the coffin is not enough, they didn't have enough cloth for everybody, what do? They cover his head and his legs, they cover him with grass or herbs or shrubs, trees, whatever it is, leaves, you cover them with that. It's until today. If you want to bury someone and there's not enough coffin, you do that. Okay? That is allowed. We also learn from the Battle of Badr, Ikhwani, that the munafiqun, the hypocrites, they are bound to be exposed. Those who used to be hypocrites, hiding kufr and acting like they are Muslims, they are bound to be exposed. And Allah exposed, this was the beginning of Allah exposing them. Remember, they were new to nifaq themselves. When did nifaq start? When did hypocrisy start? After Badr, very good. So this is 1 year, just 1 year after. So most people thought these are Muslims with us. But this was the beginning of them being exposed. That they turned away from the battlefield and left the Muslims from 1,000 men to 700 men. That is until the last days of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the last surahs to come was Surah At-Tawbah. And Surah At-Tawbah, the ulama of the Sahaba, they used to call it Al-Fadiha, the exposition basically. Why? لأن الله ما يزال يقول ومنهم ومنهم ومنهم. Some of them are like this, some of them are like this, some of them are like this, until they all fear they'll be known. But nifaq is bound to be exposed. That is even today. And some of us were naive to think that the munafiqun, they were with the Prophet ﷺ and they died and khalas. No. If they were in the best times, with the best Muslims, what do you think about today? There's more hypocrites today. And worse, in fact. And worse. And we are talking about nifaqul akbar, the major hypocrisy which tends or makes someone not a Muslim. He didn't believe at all. He just acts like a Muslim. We're not talking about someone who has characters of a munafiq. Like lying. Like he doesn't keep his promise. Like when he argues, he passes the limit. He doesn't know how to argue. Or she, for that sake. And when he's trusted with something, he proves to be treacherous. A Muslim can have one of those characters. It's just he's a Muslim, but he has a character of nifaq. But the Prophet ﷺ said, فَمَنْ كَانَ فِيهِ, whoever has one of these, كَانَ لَهُ خَصْلَةٌ مِنْ خِصَالِ النِّفَاقِ, then he has a character of nifaq. He's still Muslim. But the one who has all of these, and that's his character every day, he lies every day, he's a betrayer every day, he doesn't keep the promise every day, and he passes the limit in arguing every day, كَانَ مُنَافِقًا خَالِص. He is a pure munafiq. So don't be naive. The munafiqun, they existed then, they exist today. Also we learn from this battle the great consequence of sinning, specifically disobeying the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We know now most of us who have learned the Seerah before, all of us, we were taught the Muslims, they won every battle except Uhud, right? They lost in Uhud. They didn't lose. They were just punished. The Muslims did not lose, they were punished. And they were punished by what? By losing 70 of the best Muslims. And the Prophet being injured. And. And they lost some of the might and prestige they had gotten in Badr. 1 year before, they were nobody. They won Badr, everybody feared them. Now, because of their sin, they were put down again. They only committed one sin. And that is what happened. They were told, don't move from the hill. If you see us being killed, don't move. If you see us winning, don't move. If you see birds coming to snatch us, don't move. Allah says, وَعَصَيْتُمْ. You disobeyed. You disobeyed. That is why later on, years after the Prophet ﷺ died, before the Prophet ﷺ died, he prophesied. He told his companions, there are some of you who are going to climb on ships and cross the seas to go fight for Allah's sake. And they did that during the time of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. And one of those who crossed the sea was Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiallahu anhu. By the way, Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, we mentioned him in the beginning in Mecca, and then his role is not yet coming. He'll come back after. He's not in all of this, Abu Dharr. Because he became Muslim, he went back to his people, Ghifar. Yes. He'll come later on to Medina. Anyway, Abu Dharr, they saw him when the Muslims conquered Qubrus. Today we call it Cyprus. You know the country called Cyprus. And they saw Abu Dharr, he was sitting, he was crying. The people from the Tabi'un, those were not the Sahaba. He said, Ya Abu Dharr, why are you crying? This is the day Allah gave victory to the Muslims. And he said, this is what Allah does to people who sin against Him and disobey Him. These people, even though they are not Muslims, they used to be mighty. Because of their kufr, Allah put them down. We are today over them. Tayyib? That is the greatest lesson of Uhud. The greatest lesson of Uhud is the one sin they committed. Tayyib, that is the one sin they committed, and that is what destroyed them. Next, it is from the sunnah of Allah, meaning from the way of Allah, that it sometimes gives victory to the Muslims and sometimes gives victory to the non-Muslims. Allah says, وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. And like that, those are the days Allah gives victory to this group and then gives victory to this group. But we know that the kuffar, they don't get victory unless we are not good Muslims. وَمَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِلْكَافِرِينَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ سَبِيلًا. Because Allah is not to give victory of those His enemies over His friends. So Allah only gives them that when we disobey. We also learn from the Battle of Uhud that a mistake, in English we say a sincere mistake or an honest mistake, meaning someone, he does a mistake but he did not intend it. It is something wrong, but he didn't intend to do that wrong thing. It happened, we say by accident. That is always forgiven in Islam. Now listen to me carefully. It is always forgiven by Allah. It is always forgiven. But if it involves, and that is the meaning when we say, when you read the last two verses of Al-Baqarah, رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا. رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا. Oh Allah, do not punish us if we forget or we do a sincere mistake. We didn't know. We didn't intend. But if it involves other people's rights, if it involves other people's rights, and other people's rights are three: their honor, and their blood, and their wealth. If it involves one of those, you have to give back the rights to the people. You, with Allah, you are forgiven. But the people, you have to give them back their rights. So, let's say you invited me to your house. It doesn't mean I want to be invited to your house. I'm just saying. I come to your house, but because I'm not such a good driver, I drive into your nice landscaped lawn which you paid $5,000 to put up nice roses and whatever other things you put there. You spent $5,000 on that small garden of yours. I didn't know. I didn't see it. It was dark. I just thought it was the driveway. It turned out to be roses there, black roses. I am not, with Allah, I am not sinful. And Allah is not going to punish me. Because I didn't know, I didn't see it, I didn't intend that. It was a mistake. But you, it's your right. I have to pay you back because I damaged your property. Do you understand? I damaged your property, I have to pay you back. You can forgive me if you want. That is property, wealth. Or maybe it's your honor. I didn't intend to say something bad to you, but I did something or I said something and somehow you were offended and people viewed you wrongly. Allah is not going to punish me. But I have the what? The obligation to come and correct my affairs with you. Or worse than that is blood. And that is what happened with the father of Hudayfa. The Muslims turned around and they killed the father of Hudayfa, who was a Muslim. Now killing in Islam, killing another Muslim is the worst sin after shirk. After shirk in Islam, the worst sin is to kill another Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said, he said, killing another Muslim, the sin of it is worse in front of Allah than someone destroying the Kaaba. That is less. Okay? So they killed another Muslim, but because they didn't know, they thought it was the enemy from the Quraysh. They were forgiven with Allah. But they had to pay the blood money. They had to pay the blood money, which is 100 camels. And because it happens now, there's another point now in fiqh. It happens in a battle. The soldiers, those particular soldiers, they are not responsible. The leader of the Muslim army is responsible. That is why the Prophet ﷺ said, I'll pay the diya, the blood money. Do you understand? Yes. Next, we learn the excellence of forgiving. And this is in the same story with Hudayfa. When the Prophet ﷺ said, or even that, when Hudayfa saw them, they killed his father, he started to cry. And then he said, Yaghfirullahu lakum, may Allah forgive you. He forgave them right away. Because he knew they didn't know. And when the Prophet ﷺ said, I'm going to give out the blood money to pay, Hudayfa said, no, I forgive them. The excellence of forgiveness, and from that day he became so rich. He was never poor after that day. And he became very close to the Prophet ﷺ. Next, from the benefits we get, Shahada fi sabilillah, martyrdom, to be killed as a shaheed, is one of the greatest levels a Muslim can reach. It's one of the greatest levels a Muslim can reach. Okay? That is why in the Quran, and when the Prophet ﷺ, he was about to die, he was asked, do you want to stay on the earth? No prophet of Allah died except that he was given a choice. Do you want to stay or do you want to die now? Every prophet. Every prophet. He said no, مع رفيق الأعلى. And he said, as in Surah An-Nisa, مع الصديقين مع النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين. Those are the four levels of who are the greatest Muslims. Greatest Muslims are the prophets of Allah, Nabiyyin. And then are the Siddiqeen. The Siddiqeen are those who are just lower than the prophets. They believe with true, proper, concrete Iman. And the leader of the Siddiqeen is who? Are you sure? Is it Maryam or Abu Bakr? Maryam alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَانَتْ أُمُّهُ صِدِّيقًا. Who's better, Abu Bakr or Maryam? That's not your job. Nobody put there to decide. Allah called Maryam Siddiq, and Allah called Abu Bakr Siddiq. Khalas, we leave it. Right? But you can argue for Maryam and say her son was one of the greatest prophets. But you can argue for Abu Bakr and say he was the best friend of the greatest prophet. Now we will go tomorrow until tomorrow. But we know the Siddiqeen, those are the big, greatest people after the Anbiya, the prophets. And then are the Shuhada, the martyrs. The Shuhada. And then the Salihin, the righteous Muslims. You're a good Muslim. Tayyib? So what do you think of someone who, he was Siddiq and he was Shaheed? Like Umar, like Uthman, like Ali. They were Siddiq and they were Shaheed. Tayyib? So, a Shahada though, we saw the level of Shahada in this battle. The Prophet ﷺ said what? I wish I was killed with them. Can you imagine? The Prophet ﷺ said, I wish I was with them. And they were all taken. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Arwahuhum, their souls, their bodies are buried, but their souls are in Jannah. Fi jawfi tuyurin khudrin, in the bellies of green birds. They are in Jannah, they eat from whatever they want. And then they return in the evening. تحت العشر في مثل القناديل. They're under the arsh of Allah, the throne of Allah, in like lamps. That is why Allah asked them, what do you want? They said, Ya Rab, take us back so we can be killed as shaheed again. And Allah says, no, once you die, you die. So they said what? فَبَلِّغُوا عَنَّا. So, oh Allah, give the news to those who did not die yet, the Sahaba or in the world. Tell them what happened to us. And that is when Allah revealed those verses. وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ فَرِحِينَ بِمَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَيَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِالَّذِينَ لَمْ يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ أَلَّا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Do not think that those who are killed in Allah's sake, they are dead. No, in fact, they are alive with their Lord. Under the arsh, imagine. They are happy with what Allah has given them. And they say, give good news to those who have not yet joined us. That they should have no fear, no sadness. Tayyib. Next. Allah, He always has to test the believers. Allah has to test the believers, me and you, and everybody's in a test, so that the true believers can be distinguished from those who are fake. The true believers and the fake believer. Tayyib. And also, another benefit we learn, that it is allowed for those who are not obliged to fight. Old men, people who are handicapped, they're not obliged to fight. Allah says, لَيْسَ عَلَى الْأَعْمَى حَرَجٌ. The blind man, the one who's crippled, he doesn't have to go fight. But it's allowed if he wants to go by himself, there's nothing wrong with that. And who did we see in this fight? We saw Abdullah bin Haram, the father of Jabir. He was an old man. Amr bin Jamuh, who was old and crippled. Right? And who else? Who else was old? The father of Usayrim. The father of Usayrim was also an old man. Okay? We also learn from the Battle of Badr how in Islam suicide, al-intihar, is a major sin. Kabira min al-kabair. There's no intihar in Islam. There's no suicide in Islam. And we saw the man called Quzman. And Quzman, by the way, the scholars of Islam, they disagreed. Was he a Muslim or was he a munafiq? Allahu a'lam. The man who was fighting bravely, he killed so many kuffar, but when he was injured, and the Prophet ﷺ used to say before that, he's going to the hellfire. He's going to the hellfire. And they used to be shocked. How? This guy, look how he's for Islam. But when he was injured, he killed himself. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I told you he's going to the hellfire. The one who kills himself, the hadith in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, it says, فَهُوَ فِي النَّارِ خَالِدًا مُخَلَّدًا أَبَدًا. He'll stay in the hellfire forever. And not just in the hellfire, if he killed himself bihadida, he stabbed himself, فَحَدِيدَتُهُ بِيَدِهِ, he'll hold that same thing he killed himself in the world in the hellfire, and he'll be stabbing himself over and over again forever. وَإِن تَحَسَّ سُمًّا, if he killed himself by drinking poison, he'll have his poison in the hellfire. Double the punishment. وَإِن تَرَدَّ مِن جَبَلٍ, if he threw himself from a high place, that's how he'll be going to be dying over and over again on top of the hellfire. There's no suicide in Islam. Type, whether it is medical or not, by the way. Because now that's the big issue nowadays. Medical induced, they have a term for it.
Unless they lose their confidence.
You don't kill yourself and say, oh, I'm serving the religion of Allah. No, you're not. You're not serving Allah's religion. Next, we also learn Bashariyatul Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was human. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was human. He was not an angel. He's not God. He's not. He's just a human. The only difference is what? What's the difference? He's a prophet. What's your dalil? We are people of dalil here. Everything you say has to have dalil. Very good. One of the last verses of Surah Al-Kahf. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. Say to them, I am only a human like you. The only difference, يُوحَى إِلَيَّ. Allah gives me wahy, revelation. Allah chose me as a messenger. That's it. But he used to become sick. He had to sleep just like we sleep. We saw how he was injured. Blood came out from his face. He broke his tooth. He suffered the injury for a whole month. A whole month. Okay? He was human. He was human. So if he is human, anyone less than him is more human. So don't let Shaykh so-and-so died, so we should ask Allah by him. Ya Fulan, Ya Ali, help us. Ya Fulan, Madad. No. Nobody can help you. Only Allah. Don't say, Ya Muhammad, Ya Rasul. No. He can't help you. قُلْ إِنِّي لَنْ يُجِيرَنِي مِنَ اللَّهِ أَحَدٍ وَلَنْ أَجِدَ مِنْ دُونِهِ مُلْتَحَدًا. The Prophet himself, he was told to say, nobody can protect me except Allah. The Muslim turns to Allah. So our point is the Prophet ﷺ, he was human. And that is why he also became sad. Why is he becoming sad? Because he's human. He lost his uncle, Hamza, and the rest. Also we learn in Uhud, mashru'iyyatu ta'ziyah. That is allowed to do the consoling the people who have lost their dead, their relative, their friend, whoever it is. There's nothing wrong with that in Islam, التعزية. بس تكون تعزية شرعية سنية. The تعزية should be according to the sunnah. Not تعزية في طبل. People are beating the drum in the تعزية. Or تعزية في بدعة. There's بدعة there. Or تعزية في النياحة. Like we mentioned yesterday, people are wailing and screaming. The women are cutting off their hair. No, that's not تعزية. Or ta'ziyah, you read Quran. There's no ta'ziyah of Quran, by the way. The Prophet ﷺ did not read Quran on Hamza after he died. He didn't. To show you don't have to. You don't have to. You make dua for them. But it's allowed for you to go and console the people who lost their loved one. Yeah, of course. That's allowed. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And in fact, it is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We're going to see this after. I'm going to mention it now anyway. That you make food for the people who lost someone. Ahsant, we'll see in the battle of Mu'tah, when Ja'far radiallahu anhu will be killed, he'll say, the Prophet ﷺ said to the Sahaba, Isna'u li ali Ja'far ta'am, make food for the family of Ja'far. Because they're busy. They lost someone. But some of us in our cultures, we do the opposite. You camp in the house of Ta'ziyah. There's food for 3 days there. You see, that's the problem with bid'ah. Bid'ah brings you even financial problems also. You have to feed people for 3 days. For what? And then 7th day. 7th day also, there's a celebration. And then 10 days. And then 40 days. And then now a new bid'ah. Every year there's anniversary. So-and-so died last year, same date. Just like the kuffar did, we're now doing the same thing. And every year, the date he died, we take roses, we go to buy the roses, flowers, and go put them on the cemetery. That is haram, and that is a bid'ah, and that leads to shirk, and that is israf. You're wasting your money. And that doesn't benefit him. If you made dua for him in your sujood, a million times better. Give sadaqah for him. But ta'ziyah generally is allowed. Remember, when they came back, the Prophet ﷺ, he saw the women crying. He said, but Hamza has nobody to cry for him. To show that ta'ziyah is allowed, for you to show sadness. When they started screaming though, and they continued to the next day, he said, no, tell them to stop. Okay? Look at the balance of Islam. Allah did not say to you, don't be sad if someone dies. That's unnatural, impossible. You're human. Okay? You're human. Allah did not say, don't cry. We're going to see in the Seerah, the Prophet ﷺ, he cried when he lost his son Ibrahim. He's human. But at the same time also you don't go the other way and you scream and wail and the whole world is shut down because someone died, as people do today. If a leader of the country dies, nothing functions in that country for 7 days. Why? People have to live their lives. Tayyib. Next. We see that, Ikhwani, that Jannah is expensive. Jannah, paradise, is expensive. It's not easy to get to Jannah. It is not easy to get to Jannah. أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة لما يعلم الله الذين جاهدوا منكم ويعلم الصابرين. Allah said, do you think you just go to Jannah when Allah has not tested you to see who are the real ones who will fight for Allah's religion and those who will be patient? It requires effort. It requires effort, but this small effort we do, Allah will give you a great reward. Next. It is disliked in Islam to love to meet the enemy. And we talked about this point. Islam and the Prophet ﷺ here, as we talk about his seerah, it was not because he loved to go fighting. No. In fact, he disliked to go and meet the enemy. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا تتمنوا لقاء العدو. Don't love to go meet the enemy because you don't know what will happen to you. You get it. You always, he said, وَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ الْعَافِيَةَ. Ask Allah to make you safe. You should not love to go meet the enemy. Another thing related to that, when the Dajjal comes out in the end of times, the Prophet ﷺ said, فَلَا يَخْرُجَنَّ أَحَدُكُمْ. None of you should go out to the Dajjal. فَيَقُولْ إِنِّي مُؤْمِنٌ. Say, I'm a believer. Maybe he'll put you in a fitna and you leave Islam that day. The Muslim, he always protects his iman. If I go this place, I listen to this person, it's going to affect my iman. Don't do that. Don't say, oh, I'm a mu'min. No. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ also used to prohibit them from reading the Bible. When he saw Umar reading the Torah, in fact, he saw Umar holding the Torah, which of course was changed. He became very angry. Why? Because maybe Umar can read it, but someone else whose iman is not proper will read that, and he goes with it. Khalas. The best thing you protect is your iman. Not your car, which you're still paying for it. Or your house, because you didn't finish the payments. Some of us, that's how we think. That's my best property. No. Your best property is your iman. That's the thing you protect first. Next, from the benefits we learn in Uhud, which is connected to that the human being is weak. Al-insanu da'if. If Allah does not make you strong and protect you, you don't have anything. You don't have anything. The word for the medical induced death is euthanasia. That's the word I was looking for. There's someone here online who wrote that. Jazakallah khair. Next, we see that true tawakkul, relying and depending on Allah, it also means taking the sabab, the means. We talked about tawakkul a lot in the hijrah and after that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyidul Mutawakkilin, the leader of all mutawakkilun. Yet, he did not go out to fight just like that. Say, I'm the Prophet of Allah. No. He put on his body armor, in fact, 2 of them. And he carried his weapons. And he wore a helmet. That is tawakkul. This is the means, but your heart, you leave that everything you depend on Allah. You get it? It's very important. And he prepared his army strategically to make sure they're safe. But at the end, they depend on Allah. Tawakkul, أخذ الأسباب من التوكل. But the most important thing, you know that the sabab, the means, it's nothing without Allah. Let's say you want to take medicine. You take 2 Advils. But if you didn't have tawakkul, they'll never work. If you take 10, inshallah, actually don't take 10 because then you end up in emergency. Next, from the lessons we learn in Uhud, the great love the Sahaba they had for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I think we saw that a lot, how they used to defend him. Talha bin Ubaidullah until his hand became paralyzed. Abu Dujana and Abu Talha al-Ansari, their backs were filled with arrows because they were protecting the Prophet ﷺ with their backs. Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, he became crippled from that day on for his life. They showed really how they loved the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? We can say we love him. But they said it and they proved it. That's the difference between us and them. We can love the Prophet ﷺ bidun shak, without doubt. In fact, one of the reasons we're studying the Seerah is for us to love him. But they loved him and they proved it. That's why we can't be like them. And then the woman, ad-Dinariya, when the Prophet ﷺ returned to Medina, and she asked, "Where's my husband?" They came and said to her, "Your husband passed away." She said, "Where's the Prophet ﷺ? What happened to him?" They said, "Your brother passed away." She said, "Where's the Prophet ﷺ? What happened to him?" They said, "Your father passed away." He said, "No." She said, "No. Where's the Prophet ﷺ? What happened to him?" And they said to her, "What? He is as you wish. He's okay." She said, "Show me, where is he?" When she saw him, she said what? كُلُّ مُصِيبَةٍ بَعْدَكَ جَلَلٌ. Any calamity after this, you're okay, it's all small. My father, my husband, that's small. They loved him, they truly loved him. Tayyib? Next benefit we learn. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He guides whom He wants. Hidayah is not in our hands. Our hands is just da'wah. Da'wah wal irshad. That's it. You guide someone, you show them the way. As for believing or not, that is in the hands of Allah. And this shows you never give up on anyone. You never know. Today they might be the worst enemy of Islam, tomorrow they might be the best Muslim. You might have given them da'wah for years and years, they refused, they might believe tomorrow. Usayrim, all of his people are Muslim. His father was Muslim. And he refused to become Muslim. Until after people had gone to Uhud. And he was left in Medina, he said, "No, I think I should become a Muslim." And he went out and he fought and he died the same day without even praying one salah, and he's going to Jannah. Imagine if the Sahaba dealt with him like how we deal with each other. This is how we deal with Muslims, let alone non-Muslims. Say, this one, Allah will never guide him. He's lost. Never. You never say that. And the worse than that is that you and this person you're saying is going to Jahannam, you were partners yesterday in crime. Yeah, yesterday you are doing it together. Now Allah guided you. You're saying, "Oh, he's lost." No. Allah says, كَذَلِكَ كُنْتُم مِّن قَبْلُ فَمَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمْ. You are like that also, and Allah favored you and Allah guided you. Never give up hope on anyone. That is why we said what? The leaders of the Quraysh of Makkah, of the leaders of the Kuffar in this army are what? Abu Sufyan. And he's going to become a Muslim. Ikrimah bin Abi Jahl. He's going to become a Muslim. Khalid bin Walid. He's going to become a Muslim. Safwan ibn Umayyah, if I'm not wrong, he's going to become a Muslim. Hind, who even tried to eat the liver of Hamza, she became a Muslim. Wahshi, who killed Hamza, became a Muslim. Yet remember, when the Prophet ﷺ, he was hit. They hit his face with a stone. They tried to strike him with the sword and hit his shield. That's why his hand and his shoulder hurt for a month. Right? And he fell in the hole. He broke his tooth. He said what? كيف يفلح الله قوما شجوا نبيهم. How can Allah make successful a people who are wounding their prophet? Meaning Allah will never guide these people. And Allah revealed the verse which says, ليس لك من الأمر شيء. The matter of them to be guided or not is not yours, O Muhammad. Subhanallah. أو يتوب عليهم, Allah might forgive them when they become Muslim. أو يعذبهم, Allah will punish them. It's not for you. And that is why they became Muslims, those same people. Never give up hope on someone. Next. Al-Islamu yahdimu ma kana qablah. When someone becomes Muslim, all of his previous sins are forgiven. We know that. When someone becomes Muslim, everything he did before is forgiven. Because, where do we see this? No. In Uhud. Where do we see this in Uhud? Two people, Usayrim and Mukhayriq, the Jewish man, who believed on the same day also, and he left on the same day. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he was killed, he said what? Mukhayriq khayr Yahud, the best Jew is Mukhayriq. Islam, once you believe, all of the previous sins are forgiven. Okay? And also, now me and you will say, oh, so how can we get this favor? We are Muslims already. Should I take a new shahada? No, don't take new shahada. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Hajj. Those who go to Hajj and they come back with the right Hajj, رَجَعَا كَيَوْمٍ وَلَدَتْهُ أُمُّهُ. You come back like the day your mother gave birth to you. Pure innocent child. No sins, only hasanat. And one more, which I know people, us in the West, we don't like to hear this one. Al-Hijra fi sabilillah. Leaving a country where you cannot be a good Muslim to go to a place where you can be a good Muslim. Hijrah. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Hijra tahdimu ma kana qabla. Whoever does Hijrah fi sabilillah, all of your previous sins are forgiven. Now, any Hijrah until tomorrow, until the time we die, all of us. Any Hijrah. Tayyib? Next. We see the bravery of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We talked about this in Uhud also. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the most brave of all men. The most brave of all men, like the hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. He says, "Kana idha ishtaddat al-ba's." When war became heavy, people are fighting, we used to go behind the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We used to go behind him. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, akmal shakhsiyah, complete personality. And for you to be a complete personality, you have to have both. You're so merciful and also you're very brave. You can't be just timid. And you also can't be just rough and tough. No mercy in your heart, no. That is why if you study the life of the Prophet ﷺ, if you study Abu Bakr, if you study Umar, Uthman, Ali, those people, they had this complete personality. They were tough when it came time to be tough, and they were also the most gentle people. Next. We see the importance of a dream or dreams in general. I know I've been talking about this. The importance of dreams. Because in the beginning, even before the battle, the Prophet ﷺ saw the dream. He said, "Inni ra'aytu baqara tunhar." I saw a cow being slaughtered. وَرَأَيْتُ فِي سَيْفِي ثُلْمًا. And I saw in my sword, there's a break. The sword there's a chunk which fell off. وَرَأَيْتُ كَأَنَّنِي فِي دِرْعٍ حَصِينًا. And I saw myself in a proper protection of mail or iron, their armor. And then he explained the dream. He said, as for the Baqarah being slaughtered, those Muslims are going to be killed. As for the sword, a chunk of it being taken away, that is from my family. Rajulun min Ali Bayt, and that was Hamza. Someone from my family is going to die. And as for me being in an armor which was well protected, this is Medina. That is why he said, I think we should stay in Medina, not go out and fight. And then, by the way, he saw another dream. He said, رَأَيْتُنِي كَأَنِّي هَزَّزْتُ السَّيْفَ رَأَيْتُ السَّيْفَ مُنْكَسَّرَ. I saw the safe, the sword, it was broken. And he said, that is what? The hazima, the defeat of Uhud. ثُمَّ هَزَّزْتُهَا. And then I shook the sword in his dream, the Prophet ﷺ, and it came back as better than it was. And that is what Allah is going to give them after Uhud. So dreams have meaning. And dreams, the Prophet ﷺ said, لَمْ يَبْقَى مِنَ النُّبُوَّةِ إِلَّا الْمُبَشِّرَاتِ. Prophethood is done. Once the Prophet ﷺ is died, there's no prophets. But something else is left. مُبَشِّرَاتِ. أي رؤيا المؤمن الحق. The true dream of a believer. And in fact, the Prophet ﷺ said, من أشراط الساعة, from the signs of the hour, لا تكاد رؤيا المؤمن, that the dream of the believer will almost certainly every day become truth. He sees something and right away he sees it in real life. And that is what he said from his sunnah, the Prophet ﷺ, sometimes after Fajr, he used to ask them, who saw a dream? And he'll explain the dream to them. Now, you can't explain a dream by taking a book. One of those books says Encyclopedia of Dreams. You say, oh, I saw a white house and there was someone there was wearing a black suit. So you say White House. You say, obviously it doesn't say White House, Washington. That is not a book of dreams. And then you say, oh, black clothes, and you interpret your dream. No, that's not how it works. It doesn't work like that. There's a fiqh to it. There's principles and everything. So maybe one other day we'll do that. Next, we see the importance of shura, consultation. The Prophet ﷺ, he was commanded by Allah, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ, consult with your companions in any matter. Even though he's the Prophet, imagine, he doesn't need to consult with anyone. He was told consult. And we saw that before Badr, we saw that before Uhud also. He said, I saw dir'un hasinan. We are in a well-protected place. I think we should just stay in Medina, let them attack Medina and we can defend it. We'll win. But the young people, they said what? No. We should go out to Uhud and fight with them. He listened to their opinion. وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. And then, وَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ, once you make a decision, فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. And that is what a Muslim leader is supposed to do. That is what any Muslim is supposed to do. Now listen to me. You seek for advice, consultation. But as the leader, you have the final say. You make the decision. This is important. I hope there's wives, their husbands are here. And I hope there's husbands, their wives are here. Because this is always a problem. Oh, he did not consult me, she is saying. I say, why didn't you consult your wife? Something big happened in the house. Not he went and bought red apples instead of green apples. No, not that kind of stuff. Something big. I say, why didn't you consult with her? I said, I did consult. She gave me her opinion, but I made a decision. That's the right way, actually. The Prophet ﷺ, that's what he taught us. Oh, opposite sisters, don't be angry. If you make the decisions in your house, sure, man, that's not my problem. I'm not talking about that anyway. Listen, he used to take their opinions. Listen, but at the end, as the leader, you make the decision. Now you, the one who gave an opinion, you should not feel bad or sad or put down, or he didn't take my opinion. No, he doesn't have to. You understand? His job is to do what? To listen to all of you. And then he thinks and he plans He strategizes, he says, you know what, I think this is the best route. Everyone should agree to that. And that is what the ayah means. وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Consult with them. After you took all the consultation, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ. Once you make a decision, فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Depend on Allah, which is very important, which is the next lesson here. Once you make a decision for a true leader, and the Prophet ﷺ was the greatest leader, you cannot be shaky in your decision. You consulted, and then you made a decision. See, the Prophet ﷺ, he made a decision. He went inside his house, he put on the coat of mail, ready to go fight. When he came out, they said what to him? He said, Ya Rasulullah, لَعَلَّنَا اسْتَكْرَهْنَاكَ. You know, maybe we took you to the opinion which is not the one you wanted. So now maybe we should stay in Medina. He said, no. And that is فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ now. Once you make a decision, خلاص, we're going to fight, we're going to fight. Because if he took out his body armor and said, now people know he's not a true leader. He's not firm in his decision making. That's not a leader. Okay? Which leads us to the next point which we learn. Sometimes the one who's excellent, on top, al-fadil, قد يأخذ برأي المفضول. He can take the opinion of someone who's lower than him in status. Nothing wrong with you consulting, let's say, your young son, young daughter. Use your own child, but they give your opinion better than yours. Don't have kibr and say, no, how can he tell me this? No, no. The Prophet ﷺ, his opinion was what? We should sit in Medina and fight. But the young Sahaba, they said what? No, we should go out. And he took their opinion. He took their opinion. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He always takes care of the believers. And that is how Allah consoled them even after they'd suffered so many wounds. Allah revealed so many verses to tell them what? Don't worry. You suffered, they suffered. Don't worry. You'll be on top if you continue being good. Next, we see how the Prophet ﷺ refused to take the assistance of the Jews who are not Muslims yet. And he said, even though that's a fiqh issue, can a Muslim army take the assistance of a non-Muslim army? Can they do that? We said there's two opinions among the Muslim scholars which you have to respect. Some of them said you can, and they have proofs for that. And some of them said you can't, and these are some of the proofs. The Prophet said, "No, لا نستعين بالمشركين على المشركين." Okay. Also, what we learn is the importance of dua. The importance of dua. We saw how the Prophet ﷺ, after the battle, he told them what? Istaw, make your lines, حتى أثني على ربي, so I can praise my Lord. The dua which we read yesterday. Allahumma laka alhamdu kullu, to the end. The importance of dua. Also, what we learn from Badr is that al-muthla, mutilation, is not allowed. Even if the kuffar, they mutilate the Muslim bodies, meaning they cut them up after they're dead, Muslims are not supposed to do that. Okay? Also, we learn from Badr the importance and the status of Abu Bakr and Umar. Because remember at the end, when the Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba were on top of the hill, the mountain, Abu Sufyan came and asked for who? He said, Ahayyun Muhammad, is Muhammad alive? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They didn't respond. Then he asked, Ahayyun ibn Abi Quhafa, is Abu Bakr alive? And then he asked, is Umar alive? Those are the only three people he asked for. Even the Abu Sufyan, before he was a Muslim, he knew the excellence of Abu Bakr and Umar. Those two, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Abu Bakr, Umar, kasam'i wa ra'si, kasam'i wa basari afwan. They are like my hearing and my seeing. Okay. Also, we learn from Uhud that it is allowed for the Muslims to let the enemy attack them in their country or in their land if that is better for them to win. See, the original opinion of the Prophet ﷺ. He thought what? He said what? We should let them come to Medina because we'll win. So that is allowed. It doesn't mean the Muslims have to go out to fight somewhere. Okay? We also learn that an-nasru min indillah. Victory is from Allah. ليس بالعدد ولا بعدة. Is not by numbers or by weapons. Because the Muslims were how many? 700. How many horses they have? Kam khayl? Only 2 horses. والمشركون 3,000 men with 200 horses. 3,000 camels. Everybody had a camel. Yet the Muslims didn't say, oh, we're 700. No. Because they knew a nasr min indillah. And they were winning, like we saw. They won. Tayyib? So, who listed these benefits? All of them. How many are they? The scholars differed. 38 and 35. 35? Okay, let's add so they become 40. We see in this battle, we said it's allowed for a Muslim in battle, during war, to do some things which may be haram outside. Like to walk with arrogance, which Abu Dujana did to show the kuffar that he is strong. To walk with arrogance. Okay? And also to lie. If the enemy came to you and said, "Oh, how many horses do you have?" You should say, "We have 3,000 horses," even if you have 2 horses. This is war. In terms of war. And some of you though, you have those internet fatwas, YouTube fatwas. You say, "We are in Darul Kufr, Darul Harb. We are always in war." So your whole life, every day you are lying. Every day you are cheating. Every day you are frauding. Why? Darul Harb. La. You're not in Darul Harb, akhi. You just whack, man. You talking nonsense. Those who give themselves fatwas. Okay? We don't do that. This is war. Muslims are meeting the kuffar. It's allowed to lie there. Say we have 300 horses. Oh, and there's an army of 3,000 and 2,000 are coming. It's allowed. It's one of the 3 places lying is allowed. Don't ask me the other ones. Lying is haram. A Muslim does not lie. The other place you're allowed to lie is, MashaAllah. See, the husbands, they know that. And some of the fiqh, they know very well. You can lie to your wife, it's true. But make sure it's not a very clear lie. She'll know that you're lying, right? Make sure you put some milk in it, salt and... And the 3rd place a Muslim is allowed to lie is what? Islah dhat al-bayn. Ahsant. If 2 Muslims are fighting, they're arguing, they're not talking, it's allowed for you to go to this person and say, "Oh, so and so, he feels bad, he wants to be your brother again, your friend," even though he didn't say that. And you go to the other one and do the same thing. That is allowed. In fact, that is not just allowed, it's recommended you do that. Yes. Those are the only 3 situations you can lie, Habibi. Don't not do your homework today, and then you go to school tomorrow and say to your teacher, I was in the Seerah class and the Shaykh loved me so much, he gave me more work. I didn't give you work, you're lying now. Only 3 situations. Okay, we don't lie. Muslims don't lie. In fact, the Quraysh of Makkah we saw, before they were Muslims, they never lied. The Arabs, it's one thing they had, even before Islam. They would drink alcohol, they commit zina, they kill their own daughters. Wa'adul banat. They worship idols, but they never lie. A Muslim does not lie also. These are some of the benefits from the Battle of Uhud. Allahu, Allahu, Allah.